from yes we can to yes we did, and now we are back to our problems. Integrated business planning, leveraging short and medium term planning, the new normal. I would like to invite Rohit Mantri, Head Impact, Unified S&OP and Connected Planning at Tata Motors. Rohit. Ankur Sharma, Head Planning and Logistics at Rocket. Swadhin Mishra, Demand Planning Head, Allied Blenders and Distillers. Anil Damle, Senior President Corporate Projects and Supply Chain, Bharat Serums and Vaccines Limited. Shyam Tiwari, Head India Procurement, B-Braun Medical. Nizamuddin Syed, Head Supply Chain, Power Systems and Business Unit, Cummins India Limited. And to chair the panel, I invite Deepak Wazirani, Director Supply Chain Sketchers, South Asia Private Limited.
Hi, good afternoon, friends. It's a privilege and an honor to be here, and from all the strategy and the vision and to the hardcore execution, probably talking about day to day a little bit. So let's get back to the real world. I have the privilege of interacting with this diverse panel. We have people from the automobile business, we have people from the alcohol industry, very different kind of challenges that you have when you manufacture spirits and alcohol and also keep us high there. We have people from commodities, Ankur manages planning for Rocket and largely food business commodities. Anil from Bharat Serums, so they've been instrumental in making some COVID-related medicine. It would be nice to hear from him, how they managed their business during the pandemic, and again Nizamuddin, industrial machines, industrial machinery, and of course Swadhin we spoke about, and Shyam from Broadway. So I think since morning we spoke about a lot of things, but we heard a lot of S&OP plus S&OE, and the first thing that struck me is, for a lot of us, is S&OP plus S&OE a reality, or is has COVID forced us to do more, to change our S&OP to an S&OE? And similarly, has an IBP become an ITP, which is integrated tactical planning, more than a traditional, integrated business planning? So, maybe Swadhin, what are your thoughts on something like this, and how has life changed, or has the real life planning process changed for us with the whole COVID process? Are we out of it, or are we still there, or where are we today?
Thank you, Deepak. See, basically, before going to talk about what the question you asked me, so from the morning itself, we have been talking about resilience, the S&OP, S&OE, then IBP, and so many technologies and numerous algorithms. So COVID has actually taught us a lesson. So prior to COVID, there was a normal, okay, and post-COVID, there is a new normal. Things like, there was an Azerbaijan and Armenia war, there is still going the Ukraine and Russia war, pandemics, like, something that's still, happening, keep on happening. There will be new pandemic, probably it may come or may not come. So, understanding all those things, the one thing which, everybody should now realize that, things like the new normal is, these are the new normals. We cannot ignore the fact that these kind of disruptions will keep on happening. And whenever we are talking about the planning, the resilience and the S&OP or the IBP, integrated business planning, what we are going to talk about. So every disruption has to be factored into this current new era of life. So that is something.
So you're saying monthly is now weekly and weekly is now daily, and that's the way life is.
That's the life. I'll put some real life example. There were situations our demands were ahead of our supply. Okay, people were behind us to get stock, to get orders. To get stock from us. Now we are running behind the people to get the stock because we have ample facility now. Because of this pandemic, the situation is such that there were new players who would emerge in the market because people will not wait. Even in the pandemic also, there was there are people who have drinking habits. They will not wait for this pandemic. They will find a new way to get all those things to cater the requirement needs. So new people have new companies had arisen, new set of players has been arise. So we are struggling for the how to manage our supplies and how to cater our demand.
So Anil, how did you guys manage the surge in COVID medicines and antibiotics? Maybe you want to tell people a little bit about Bharat Serums.
Yeah. Bharat Serum and Vaccines Limited must be known. Even though the word includes vaccines, we don't have vaccines. At the same time, all our products are life-saving products. During this COVID, as mentioned by so many people, COVID came all of a sudden. COVID, especially if you must have observed, there was one further COVID scenario number 2, where mucormycosis, or it is called black fungus, the disease was there. Whatever you call S&OP, whether you call IBP, ultimately, in our industry, the patient's survival or the patient's life, and our survival because of patient survival. So those were two things. Now all of a sudden the demand surged. However, the initials there were some signs, so we decided to take some preventive actions. The few of the preventive things is that we tied up with few of the vials or the ampoules manufacturers where our medicine goes. Second thing was we blocked some of the manufacturing facilities of the API manufacturers in India. The third difficult portion was few of the imports coming from the countries like China, Korea, where a lot of turbulences were there and are still there. Further, the issues regarding logistic things and all, that also we anticipated and we started importing the API which were dependent on these countries. We literally stored for a few months and at the same time the demand plannings and all, we started consulting the hospitals and doctors and knowing the future trends of this disease. This disease is a unique one and whatever you say, if almost the disease is over, some new version comes. And when the new version comes, again some diversification comes. So that's why we constantly in touch, not only with our ultimate customers, but also on our systems. Also as mentioned by HUL, a lot of things goes through manpower. So we train the people at the initial stage. The factory workers were really important because the factory workers' families were resistant to send those workers to the plant. And unless the workers come, unless we produce, we cannot satisfy. In the meantime, government mechanisms also started acting and we had to answer them on weekly basis. Few of the states government, few of the central governments, and that also we monitor. So all the things related with this demand planning sometimes become different and then we have to take some preventive actions that work in COVID. And now we feel we have got accustomed with this type of things and we are trying to get.
So we are now accustomed to this way of working and looking at something more granular, real-time sensing and.
The only thing earlier CFOs or CSOs they used to start in third week, fourth week. Now we observe it probably it happens every week and not only from the demand, not only from supply, finance as well as the procurement. So all those things are come together. So probably the good thing out of COVID is that everybody becomes as a team.
So there is more collaboration and less silos.
Absolutely. And that of course the help of systems that is also being discussed. Earlier it was at the last priority, now it has become the top priority.
So earlier it was only supply chain
Absolutely.
that needed planning processes,
Yes.
now the whole ecosystem needs it. So maybe Rohit, at Tata Motors, for example, and then I was reading, there was a nice tweet from Anand Mahindra, right, that he put few months ago about his wife having bought a SUV 700 and she has a waiting time of 4 months. So when a customer had said that your waiting time is 7 months, he said, look, my wife has a waiting time of 4 months. So, when the whole world is grappling with here and now, and you being in an industry where, the lead times itself has 6 months, 9 months to deliver vehicles, is kind of a way of life. So, how do you manage the short term and how do you manage the long term?
Right, see, can you hear me? Yeah. We at Tata Motors actually, embarked on this journey of lifting the maturity of S&OP slightly before the pandemic. Actually, it was almost, slightly before, right? And we, got into it. And from my perspective, really, some of the actions that we are taking would not only just help the short term here and now, as well as the long term action. Let me just explain, right? Coming to this topic of integrated business planning, for me, actually, integrated business planning really, this is my own definition, actually has three, elements, right, or three objectives. One is to make sure that you've got a volume and a value view at any time, at any decision making point, right? Whether it is a here and now decision or whether it's a long term decision, both of them need to be seen, right? So that is one, a volume and value view at the same time. Other thing is to make sure that all the related parties in that related process are actually connected, right? Dealer, Tata Motors, supplier, as well as customer. Right now, we are able to put out platforms where the customers can come on board, and we are able to then plug them in. So you can actually reach out to the customer as well. So getting all the customers connected together is another object, right? So we are integrating them. The third one is to integrate the time frame, right? You've got a 0 month, process, execution process. Then you have a 0 to 3 month process. Then you have a 4 to 12 month process. All these things have to talk to each other. They have to be seamless, right? So when we are talking about integrated planning, we talk what we embarked on was to try and actually achieve all these three. And you can't just achieve all this just by technology or anything. You have to actually attack it very holistically. People, process, technology, everything put in the mix, and everybody pushing in the right direction, right? So that's what we did. It was a transformation kind of journey. And over the past 2-3 years, what we have done is actually moved the S&OP onto a unified platform. We are using two technologies, one technology at the front end to cover the demand planning side, another for the supply side. And as we are speaking, we are connecting the FP&A, financial planning processes also onto this platform. Now you are able to actually achieve all these things that I am explaining, right? And when I am talking about bringing these things on board, as of now we have already implemented the 0 to 3 month time horizon. We are working on the 4 to 12 months. So that's what an integrated business planning solution or process or kind of thing puts together, and it solves for business problems, whether they are here and now or long term. That's how it's.
And when you see situations like this about 7 months waiting and all that, do you guys see bullwhips coming into your future forecasting? And then, do you see anything like that? And if you do, how do you manage some of that?
Yeah, excellent point, right? Actually, by bringing all these, all the people on a single platform, there are certain core things that are changing, right? Very, very fundamental things, and they will take time to behavioral changes which will change over time. What we are doing is, since morning, there have been a lot of references to siloed working. Right? So when you are having a planning process which is, Excel based. You've got groups of people all along the chain who are generating their own plans, passing it over, etc. And it's all, a chain of handoffs, right? What is happening now is that we have brought everything on a single platform. So the guy at one end, literally, at the vendor end, or at the supply end, can see what is happening on the field or the dealer end, provided we give the right access, right? In fact, it's a situation where we are able to give access, but we have to tread a little slowly so that we don't shock the system. Right? It's the other way around. So now what happens is, if you have been curated, right, you are able to see what is happening, or in the sense, the entire community who's there is able to see what is happening, and the focus now starts moving on the real problem. That's the customer, market, competition, and not these little internal handoffs, right? So that is the kind of metamorphosis, change, etc. that we are driving at. We have put in a metric which everybody knows, which is the on time in full kind of a metric. But the way the metric gets measured is it's a no touch kind of a thing. System just calculates the whole thing, puts out a number, and it's calculated by at the planning stage, whenever a customer or whoever comes and asks for a car, books or something, car or truck, the system is able to actually work out the entire cycle of all the lead times and able to revert, saying that okay, you will get it next week, next month, or after 6 months or whatever, right? So there's a degree of predictability. To your point now, because of semiconductor, because of COVID, because of so many other issues, supply chains in certain areas, let's take the example of semiconductor, they've got really stretched. In fact, semiconductor suppliers are asking for 2 years, from forecast. So all this gets reflected at the front end with lead times like what you are mentioning. However, at least now people are beginning to see why it is happening, what they can do about it, and everyone is working on the same problem, not working against each other. So problem is there, needs to be resolved, and what we see is that this will pass, right? Semiconductor capacity is building up as we speak. Semiconductor will be history after some time. Hopefully something else doesn't come up. But this is we'll have to deal as we go.
So Ankur, your business saw a huge pudding and surge in the food business. So how did you guys cope up with COVID? What did you have to do? Set up additional capacities? And again, commodities is largely managing gross margins, managing bottom lines. So how are you doing this short term, longer term trade off and managing your
So basically, coming from commodity, the biggest challenge which we face during COVID time is how to give that service, because to your customer, because that is the only differentiation you have in commodity to serve to your customer, that you can have your service. That was the first challenge. And when I say service, it is more also about reliability, being a supplier to your customers. The second thing was on the cost efficiency, which is operation. How do you manage your variable cost? And variable cost not only limited to your raw materials, but also on about how you're running your plants, your energy, fuel. Everything matters because you are operating in a world which is very, very cost competitive. And with all these disruptions, you have to take that force going with you to generate, at least a decent level of margins, which was not the case during when we see the COVID hitting it, right? So it was more about survival, right? So how do you survive in this market, because everything was going on the negative side. Now, the best thing which happened actually during COVID time is nothing was, you have to initiate. It was by force coming in. And you are seeing everybody is very, very collaborative to work on, because it is more about survival, which you need to go through, right? So financial was holding their own fort, procurement was handling their own fort. Everybody is having, humongous savings earlier, but when you see the real P&L, nothing is coming out, right? Because and that's where the role of collaboration, integration, everything comes in. And I've also not seen, your managing director asking you, okay, what is the sales order today? Or, your CFO coming to your desk and saying, what is the sales order today? How much okay, sales order is okay, what we dispatched today. So that was the time, right? So, and when that is the time, then only service is not only the thing, but it's also about how you are securing future. So that means for commodities, 0 to 3 months is something which you can secure, because beyond that you don't know what is going to happen on your pricing side, how much coverage you want to do on the raw material side. So
there is still demand.
there is still demand, and the most important thing is what we were talking about, disruption in global supply chain. That is an opportunity for commodity market to serve, right? So China is not operating, Israel is not operating, they are not supplying to the export countries where you were actually non-competitive earlier, but now you suddenly become so competitive that your demand surge from 100 to 150 or 180%. And during that time, you have now choice whether you serve domestic or whether you serve exports. So that type of balance which we need to do. So for that, I think what we did is the first thing is we have accelerated decision making on two sides. One is on the capital planning. That was, if we are seeing that shift in terms of demand, which is suddenly we are seeing exports is also very competitive for commodity side. How can we, accelerate that decision, which gives you ROI within 6 months of time,
So
on capacity planning. That is one, and then the second one is on the procurement side. That how do you bring in this cost buy-in, integrated with your S&D, which is demand supply, which we normally do in S&OP side, but not on the financial side, never integrated that short-term horizon. But now you are covering lens on your raw material, covering lens on your energy side, because you are seeing that is the advantage it is giving to your business. So, and then what we had is, we were having S&OP tool earlier, but then we introduced the radar management, which is a margin management tool, talking to S&OP, and you were having every week you are seeing the P&L of the company. So that is something very, very helpful in terms of managing the cost, and also giving sales a lever, talking to customer, what they see for next month, what they see another month, whether they can take that demand. They were able to trade off between whether they should take the orders of exports or domestic or which customers. So that's how we integrated both the process of value and volume together.
So Nizam, this is for you. How do you see, I mean, we did hear a lot, but how did you guys have technology help the short-term IVP more than the planning systems that we talk about?
Okay, so I'll put it in the way like a story. So if you look at in 2020, before 2019, most of us are on IBP journey, and IBP journey is ever evolving. On a high level, people put a high level objective that revenue growth and gross margin maintenance is the objective, where we have product review, demand review, supply review, integrated optimization, and whatever you call management position. And that was going very well with its fixed template, right? And we acknowledge that we are on a journey. We learn, we make gradual steps in the maturity. Now we flip to 2020. Suddenly COVID hit us. Now it was not predicted. Now around 3 months or 2.5 months, you have a gap in the supply chain. And suddenly everyone understood this 36 months is a myth, right? And once you have a gap, people had a lot of time to understand their supply chain, because everything was hidden under the carpet, right? Be it due to inventories, be it due to the budgets which we are having. And once everything stopped, the real issues surfaced. And when I said when world stopped, everyone had time to look at, "Arey, ye kyun nahi ja raha? Ye kyun nahi ja raha?" So when they started asking this question, most of the things which surfaced out was there are a lot of problems within our supply chain. So when we started looking at this on a tactical level or even on an executional level, we came to know that we have a simple approval process which required 10 approvals, right? So when a executive manager came to know that अरे एक airfreight करना है तो 10 लोगों को approve करना पड़ता है. Before that, if you tell this to someone, they will say that no, this is the process. You have to follow it. This is the norm. And these 3 months, I think here I would say I would appreciate the way our leadership looked at it. Otherwise, this could very well we would have very well gone back to our lower maturity level from IBP to a shortage team.
So the learning came very fast that we need to
I
be
think
very agile in
that's
decision
where I
making.
would say that the leadership engagement I would appreciate that the leader never dropped the ball and kept the IBP intent while keeping the BCP going on, right? Because what they did, they said that okay, I have a resource, you spend money, you continue the BCP, but register what are the issues which were there, right? And when we understood that issues are like rigidity in our supply chain, our network design is poor, we have proprietary suppliers, okay, like some of the radiator suppliers. All the radiator suppliers are common. They do not get copper, and then your whole line is stopped. It's across the industry. So how do you manage that? And once we understood that, the real supply chain resiliency work parallelly started. So I would say that not to digress from this thing. By 2020, by putting a parallel system to understand the issues, I think we registered the issues, and in 2021, management helped us to now said that okay, now you were managing it with brute force. Now let's move to how you can manage it proactively. And once you start managing proactively, then I think there is a very, very basic requirement of IBP, that is do routine thing routinely. Once you start doing routine thing routinely, then you know what are the problems which you are having. Like don't change from maturity 1 to maturity 5. Keep on doing, validate your assumptions, and keep on improving on the assumptions. I think that's where I would say we moved from brute force to start looking at what we can do proactively. And once we start doing few things proactively, then we can go to the partners and say that now we have a process, now we need it.
Good. Thanks. So your supply chain is far more resilient than ever.
I think, see, that's what I think. It's an evolution, right? Basically, you put an assumption, you execute, you learn. If you are successful, then you understand what are the issues. I think the major challenge is what we have is what we understood is our supply chain, which is global supply chain, is we do not understand our network fully. I know my supplier, but I don't know the tier 1 supplier of my supplier, right? So especially in case of engines, you have long approval process of source approvals, customer approvals, so you can't change your supplier. And we have very high proliferation and low volume that we can't just switch on suppliers. So we are learning to live with it and manage that volume. That's our level.
So Swadhin, in your alcohol business, let's say you are so tightly controlled, and let's say a small variability here and there. I mean, there was a recent article saying Delhi is out of alcohol and all of that. So how do you manage your supply chain? I mean, how many IVPs or S&OPs do you need to do? Do you need to do it state-wise, or how do you manage your planning process?
No, we do one S&OP and one, that's different. Anyway, so answering to your question, see, our supply chain is as simple as other supply chain. The only problem complicates the entire story, the entire network, is the intervention on the regulatory part of the government. So we are under the regulatory regulation.
So can you stock transfer or no?
No, we cannot do stock transfer from one state to another. It is like, export and import.
So how do you manage?
So, we have to have different factories. Well, every state we have to have one manufacturing. If not, we have to go through a process of registration. And that's a very lengthy process. If for example, there is a law in Delhi that you cannot have a manufacturing distributing within the Delhi factory. So all you have to do is that you have to bring something from outside. So it is like almost all the process like export and import. You took all the process. That's how the process is doing. So having understood that, that is not an issue because that's the part of customer. But the issue, the crux of the matter is in whichever business we are, the collaboration and integration, what we call the integrated business planning, highly essential in nowadays in the new normal era. Okay. And technology is also equally very, very important. It plays a very important role in terms of the kind of information what we require, the kind of data analytics which we require. So many of them very, very difficult to do the Excel or the silo-based work. So it is highly, highly important to have the right technology in place. It depends whichever, if my department, if I am sitting at a forecast estimation 25%, so what else somebody department? In every industry, it's very, very difficult to understand when to have those kind of forecasts. But despite of that, because of the silo-based work, we are having a lot of write-ups in terms of flow and obsolete inventory. So we are facing those challenges. To eradicate those challenges, slowly and steadily, moving into the process of integrated business planning. So we were the first set of people who had joined the organization as an integrated business planning department.
So has the experience of the last 2-3 years and with the new normal? I mean, we spoke about there's somebody who said we should have a common planner, and so COVID did give us a lot of opportunity to cut across or have those daily meetings or get onto those calls at any point in time. Do we see supply chain as a much, so do we see demand, supply, distribution more coherent now, or do we still?
Now it's coherent. People are, the senior level, executive level of any organization would like to understand the nitty-gritty of the business, which earlier was not a part. Okay. So, like my other friend was telling me, so now the CEO of the organization asking what are the number of trucks they are going to deliver today. So those kind of tactical level approaches had taken the front seat now. So I think things have quite changed now. Yeah.
That is, it is not fully coherent, but we understood the necessity of being cohesive. Right? I would not say it's a journey, right? Because there are functional silos, there are human barriers, there are process barriers, and organizational process doesn't change over the day. So there is a lead time, there is a change management time which it takes. So need is understood. I think we are not that cohesive yet. That's I see. I don't know. It's practical to be cohesive in 1 year.
That is always the journey of improvement in any organization. But I think COVID has clearly made us far more, collaborative. Happy to hear each other, throw things at each other every day, and live peacefully. So I think we are all under pressure of time. So this is it from this session, and thank you for the patient hearing.
Thank you.